Okay.
So, Nicole, welcome to the conference. And part of what I'm so excited about the How I Bounced Back conference is not just um, our stories, but it's how we all came together. I don't know if you know this, but I asked a whole bunch of people and they all backed out. And I was like, wonderful. And then all of people like you showed up, and I thought, your story must be meant for someone right now at this time. There's no accidents in my world, right?
Right.
And
Absolutely.
so those people, this was not their time to tell their story because somebody's listening for your story. So why don't you go ahead and tell us, what are you bouncing back from?
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. First of all, Sandra, it's great to be a part of this, and I appreciate, as you say, the real world that we all live in, and we're coming together as we are today, and that's something to celebrate. And basically, what I'm bouncing back from is a series of events that have happened literally over the past 10 years. It's been sort of a cycle. I like to say that it wasn't one big trauma that hit me. I was sort of wiped out in stages.
I don't.
So
I don't mean to. That laugh was not haha funny. That laugh was, oh, I get that.
but it happens that way for some of
Right?
us. It's not just one
Hmm.
thing. Again, like, well, my first big challenge was through health. And so there was a bit of disease. And then later there were disasters, like some natural disasters. So my story is sort of spread out over a time period. So basically, in a nutshell, I'm from the United States. You know, I was born and raised here, but pretty much as soon as I got out of finished university, I went to the University of Arizona and studied cultural anthropology. So I was always very interested in traveling and other cultures. And right out of university, I went to Minnesota and I was doing an internship in rural Minnesota, environmental education. And I met an Argentine man there who was also doing an internship. And basically, we fell in love, and I ended up moving to Argentina at 22.
Wow.
So I went from Arizona to Argentina, ready for the next
Yeah.
thing, you know, like very much at that stage in our lives, you know, early 20s, and I was happy to go explore. And so, literally, for the next 22 years, I have been down in Argentina. And it was while I was in Argentina that I was working with my boyfriend and then later my husband. We were setting up an environmental learning center down in Argentina, which is still going today, I'm happy to say, and living in rural Argentina. And in 1998, I went to actually we went to the doctor to see am I in good health because we'd like to have kids now. And so doing the test, it came up that I had a thyroid condition, which I found very inconvenient. I was like, I really don't have time in my life for any, you know, health issues. I was
I
not,
love that.
I was, you know. So, so basically, I, over the years, had Graves' disease, the goiter, hyperthyroidism, which accelerated my body process. I had the shimmer, you know, the shakes in the hands, and I was kind of trying to control it through good vibes and taking my pills that the doctor prescribed kind of when I wanted to, and then later I got more serious about it. But it was a chronic condition. Obviously,
Right.
it's a it's not easy just to let it go. And I didn't want to get the surgery because my little thing because I didn't want to remove this part of my body because I didn't want to be dependent upon pills. And
Mhm.
I just said, you know, like I said, I wasn't really in the mood for this to change my life. So I sort of dealt with it and I sort of didn't deal with it. And when I did finally, I got the green light to become pregnant. It was fine. Had a very healthy pregnancy. Twins. I had twin boys,
Oh,
beautiful babies. but as they were, where they're born, it turned out that they had transitory hyperthyroidism themselves. So when they were born, they had absorbed all these extra hormones that I had, and that put them at risk for the first 40 days of their lives. They were in and out of intensive care. So that, although it sort of passed by and we did everything we had to do, and luckily they came through very healthy. They're very healthy, 15-year-old boys today. That was very, obviously a very kind of traumatic. So one health thing sort of led to another. And then in 2005.
Can I ask you a question really quick?
Yeah, of course.
Did you experience any guilt?
With the disease? Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. I did.
This is important to talk about, because this is something moms don't talk about. When we get an unexpected outcome, like your boys are great, they're 15 and they're wonderful today, but when we get an unexpected outcome, what does that do to our hearts as moms, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that's a really important thing, because I felt obviously responsible because they were in my body. That wasn't perfect, wasn't a perfectly running machine. And I just felt like, I could have wished this thing away. Like, I felt like I definitely believe there was something that I was doing that put me at risk to get sick through my mental patterns. I was starting to get a little bit wise to Louise Hay and the idea that we have some, say in our health and what happens to us. And so, yes, I felt that my choices got me sick, and then as a result, I got my kids sick. So there was a lot of guilt. And interesting that you bring it up, because the guilt is probably one of the hardest things to deal with, because it becomes a big resistance in actually dealing with the situation as it is. And it was a very frightening time, because there was a time there of about 15 days that we weren't sure what the outcome was, because you had serious, they call it tachycardia in Argentina in Spanish, but it's the accelerated heart rate, and they were babies, but they couldn't stop moving.
Right.
So they looked and acted like crack babies. Like, really, that's what and so that was obviously very hard, because I wanted a natural birth. Like, I was even considering a home birth, but that's not the way it happened. And, it's like, literally I had to go through this situation. So, yes, guilt is never a fun thing to entertain. When it arrives on our doorstep, the best thing we can do is look at it and accept it, but move along. It's never helpful. So any mothers out there going through that, I would say, as quickly as you can, try and get that off your plate, because
absolutely.
We do. And when we aren't well, they can be very debilitating to us and to our health. Obviously, guilt. I say I mean different emotions like guilt can be harmful to us.
Absolutely.
So, 2005, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And that's when...
Now, how old are the boys at this point?
So they were born in the year 2000.
Oh,
and,
wow.
So they were 5 years old. They were tiny. They weren't aware of anything that was going on.
Right.
Doing the routine self-exam that we know how to do. I found a lump. I found a hard spot. It was like, I wonder what this is. And, went to have the tests, and my gynecologist said, look, it's no big deal. This is a cyst. It's a question of 20 minutes. I'll have it out. It's no big deal. And I said, okay, that's great news. That's what I wanted to hear. And and I actually making the appointment to see the next appointment with my gynecologist, when the woman who had done the mammo came up to the mammogram. And she said, so what are you doing? I said, look, it's nothing. The doctor told me, what we're going to do, blah, blah, blah. And she said, I'm sorry to tell you this, but this is really serious. I saw it. It's not a cyst. And later she told me, she said, I was so scared to tell you that in the hallway of the clinic, because I could have lost my job, because I was going around
The
any kind
doctor.
of protocol, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is one of the blessings of the situation where in Argentina they're not as bound by the sort of the laws that doctors have to protect themselves with here. So it kind of opened up for that sort of situation where she just like spoke from her heart. And so I'm really grateful for that. I had a lot of surgeries done and different procedures done throughout my time in Argentina, and I can only speak really very highly of the doctors, and I just had really good experiences. They've helped, they've saved me many times. So basically she was saying, look, later she told me, she said, you were going to, I could see it in your eyes, you were going to let this thing go a couple months. We were going into summer there. You were going to do that like 2 months, 3 months into the future. And I knew by then you were going to be in a very, serious situation with your health. So she said, please take this seriously. Well, I did. And it turned out, yes, it was cancer. And, so when the doctors a couple days later they did a biopsy. So a week or so later, they said, brought me into the office and said, you have breast cancer. And this is really the first time I had really considered cancer. It really wasn't a reality in my world. So I thought, I'm going to die. Cancer equals death. That's right. Okay. So I've got to get ready for 3-4 months that I have left. And, so I was dealing with that sort of reality that I thought I was facing for about a week. And then after going back and talking with the doctors, they said, no, look, you're going to deal with this, but you have to do the surgery. You have to, as quick as you can, we need to get you in and give you a mastectomy. So then it was like, oh, okay, great. What a great solution. I'm going to live. I can see my boys for, their long lives. And into surgery a couple weeks later, it was very, very quick. So on one hand, it was very quick kind of healing because the surgery did what it had to do. It got rid of everything. But after that, as the weeks, months went on, I was dealing with the reality of having one breast as a woman because it was just a mastectomy. And the doctor said, we don't do the implant right away. We want you to heal up, and then we'll, if you want, you get an implant and, do the reconstructive surgery. But first we need to do the mastectomy. So that's what I did. I had a mastectomy, and afterwards it was really the healing, and that took me quite a while to heal from just the physical change in me, even though I was healthy and I did the right things to start getting better.
Sure.
I realized that this thing was still hanging around. Like, what was it that was still hanging around that I felt that I could get sick again? And then that's when I kind of connected the dots and realized that there was something inside of me I needed to work on. It wasn't just pushing into straight. There's a connection between my emotional patterns, and it really highlighted, and this is what addictions and disease does when we hit rock bottom and we have to face the reality of whatever our big challenge is. There's not much else to do except look at it. There's really nowhere else to run, right?
Yes.
And that's what, and there's a blessing in that. When you get wiped out, you have to wake up to your reality, and that's when it gets real.
I was going to say what I found very interesting and consistent in your story is the Graves' disease, and I'm going to disconnect from that. That's not going to be part of my reality, and yet it shows up. And then breast cancer, and thank goodness for that. Would she be considered a nurse, the woman who told you, or was she a doctor?
She was a technician. She was the one who did the
the mammogram, and she saw it.
Right.
But and then she saw that in your face, and I don't know what your spiritual belief is, but talk about being protected. That at that moment she saw you going to do that again, and something told you, no, don't do that. So how did you? I'm dying to hear. Tell me about that emotional breakthrough, because that's huge for people. Especially, I deal with recovery a lot, But the other things that I deal with are, especially people with weight issues. They
Mm-hmm.
they tend to leave their body, and
Right.
the shaming that happens in all cultures, and the fact actually that it is really socially acceptable to scoff and make fun and ridicule someone of weight. Um, there's a ton of studies about that. And England just did some studies about really encouraging people back into their bodies. And when you encourage them back into their bodies and to connect the mind, the body, and the spirit, it's not woo-woo stuff. It like really does save people's lives. And so I just gave you a lot. Sorry about
No,
that.
no, you're
And
absolutely on track.
can you tell me your experience around that?
Absolutely. Because that's very much what I was living. I was disconnected. I wasn't fully in my body. And so what happened between being diagnosed and actually having the surgery and getting through it really was that I found, I said, I have to express this somehow. I had so many emotions about it. Uh, and so I went into my private I had a little room, a little studio, because I've always been a writer and I've always played around with ideas and whatnot. So I said, I'm going to draw. I had this idea to draw myself. And I drew. It was the first time I ever done, a representation of what I was sensing about myself in that moment. And so I drew this beautiful sort of Buddha-like smiling, peaceful head and shoulders. And that's where the paper ran out. And I was just this, what did I have? It was my self-portrait as this smiling sort of floating head, but no body. Ironically, I mean, obviously it wasn't planned like that, but that's the way it came out. And so I realized this was my like aha moment. I was just sort of like this spirit sort of floating around, but I was not connected to my body.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, all I have to do is draw a new picture of myself. So I made a conscious effort. I said, what do and that was, you said yes, that was my self-portrait. I made a conscious effort to draw exactly the opposite of a full body. So I took out a little art book, to copy from. So I'd get with a pencil. So I took my time, 20 minutes, a half hour, whatever it took me. And I drew a full figure of a woman, feet firmly planted on the ground, arms out. And then I said, I want her to have butterfly wings in the back and her heart opening up and all this health radiating through her body. And so I was drawing all this with my colored pencils. And that I entitled Yes, saying yes to life, whatever, here I am. It was really my here I am moment, and I drew it out. So that became my healing path. It became art, that I was just going to draw it out. And then I said, well, it's really convenient to start cutting pieces of paper. So I'm going to also just cut pieces of paper. And that's where the collage came into my life, and I just started collaging. And now I'm a collage artist. That's one of the things that I do. So art is what really came into my life through the cancer. So to me, cancer is art and the healing path. And this is one of the things that I later shared, because as I'm kind of like, there's a lot, like my story is sort of like stretches out, but another part of the story is that one of my best friends was also diagnosed with cancer at the same time, lymphoma. And so we got into the practice of meeting up. I had already had the mastectomy, so I was out of the danger zone. But as far as the intense urgency with the cancer, but the whole healing process that's much deeper, that takes much longer. And so we would get in the habit of meeting up together and meditating and drawing. He's also an artist, and so this was just our thing, and we just shared this space, this healing space. And he made the comment, he said, you realize that before we had cancer, we just thought we were brains floating around in a jar. Like, this is the way that we treat our bodies. We're just a brain in a jar. And it's true. We had never really given care in a deep way to ourselves. We were never present. Like you said, we were not
Yes.
fully in our bodies. And there's shame, for whatever the reason is, and we all have our particular personal reasons to feel ashamed or not feel worthy, to not be fully present. But that's the healing path. So
that is so exciting. So, and what I tell people very frequently is express it.
yes.
And if many times, especially if people are locked into an emotional pattern, they don't have the words yet. Like to say things like I'm sad, or I feel guilt, or I feel shame, or I feel happy, even the joyful emotions. Like I don't have those words if I've been locked into an emotional pattern. And so I tell people all the time, express it, do yoga. I have them writing. I have never met anybody that does collages before, and that's exciting. Now, do you share that work with other people, or how does that happen?
Yes, I do. I share it with other people. It started very naturally, like I said, with my friend. I've been in education, so I was always working with children, and I would share it not from a healing perspective, but just as an expression through creative writing and also through visual, because like you say, it's hard to find the words. Children, you see it in children, they don't like to write necessarily, but also as adults, and when we're in intense situations, to find the words, because so much of what we experience is beyond language. Yeah. So, but you have to do something with it. Like you say, you've got to do yoga, you have to move that somehow. So what I found with children or with adults, having pictures to work with, and collage is so easy because it's really going back to preschool. I mean, or to kindergarten, with scissors, glue. There's just, and paint, and mixing it all together. It's literally. So what I started to do, I worked with friends, I worked with my students, and then that grew into meeting up with women's groups that we would get together and share these activities.
How yummy.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
It's very, very yummy, very rich, very real, very authentic, and beautiful. Because as you know, like if you're working with yoga, it's beautiful when you work with art. And this is my thing, like make the beauty, whatever you want to express, get it out there. That's what we're here to do.
Right.
And so again, for me, it really was about teaching people that it's really simple. All you need, literally, you need a piece of paper, you need a pen, and some colors, and some scissors and glue, and start cutting. And so I had activities. So I basically just created activities to share with other people. And depending on the context, whether we were working on archetypes, that's one thing that I really enjoy sharing, especially with women, but really for anybody. But to get into the archetypal energies that we resonate with at any particular moment, and knowing that we can call in whatever we feel like we're lacking. We can, bring it in, and to express it visually makes it real for us. So this is what I have come into doing and sharing in my life now.
And the other thing, you and many of the other people on the conference have taken experiences that in the media tell us they should wipe us out, right?
Right.
And all of us from literally all over the world have taken these experiences and transformed them and given the experience plus the healing out. We just keep giving that out to people. So it's so exciting. Now, I read in your biography you have a book coming out. Can you tell me what the book is? I'm so excited. Can
Absolutely.
you tell me what the book is about?
Love to. Yes, it's the Dream Journal, and it is for people that want to do creative journaling, to do a little journey, because journaling is a journey into the self. And so it's the tools to help people go down that path of exploring what it is that they have inside. And so, and it's the Dream Journal because I specifically focus the book and the prompts to pull out what it is that you want to do. So through answering questions and then expressing it not only in words but visually and through colors, and living this process with yourself, because it is a journey and an adventure. You don't know where you're going to end up. Like in life and in journaling and in art, you have an intention, but you also open yourself up to something larger. So to use all this sort of this energy, this creative energy, to not only create art, but create the life that you want to live, which is what it's a passion of mine, is
right.
Manifesting our desires. That's the other half of all this is, okay, what do I want to do? So that's where it gets really exciting, that if we can, as we create art, we're also creating our next steps, and we're creating our reality, and we're creating where we're going to be, who we're going to be in a year and 5 years. So to do that consciously by playing around with art, to me was a win-win situation. I said, this is great. Mm-hmm. So that's what the book is all about. It's prompts. Every page has a prompt to get all this out. And
that is so exciting. Now, have you ever had the moment? Now, I can't wait to get your book, because I'm excited to see what's going to happen. So my technique is different than that, and yet the same. If I'm struggling in that place where I know I'm disconnected from, I feel free to laugh. It's okay if you laugh at me on this. I have to take a white piece of paper and a black Sharpie.
Right.
And I just need a white piece of paper and a black Sharpie, and I can solve all my problems, because I write and I write and I write and I write and I write, and tell me if this is your experience. I pull back from it and I go, oh, that's me. That's what I believe. Oh.
Exactly. That's the magic of it. Until you get it out there, you didn't even know that you exactly felt that or thought that. That's the magic of it.
Yes.
That's what I found. Like, if I just kept it inside and worked on it in my head, or even talked about it with, my friends or caring people, it's not the same as doing a session with myself. And whether it's, like you say, the black Sharpie on a white sheet of paper, it's great that you know what it is that works for you. And free writing, that's another thing that I do, where you just start writing and just go, 10 minutes, and you go, oh my gosh, look what's in there, the jewels, right, that come out amongst a lot of junk.
Yeah, right.
So that is the reality of it. And like, as we were talking about earlier, that we think that there's a perfect sort of image and enlightenment, and what we're aiming for is this sort of, it really is a floating image of ourselves that isn't real. The real magic is what we're living right now with your Sharpie and white sheet of paper. That's magic.
Yes.
Because a black Sharpie and a white sheet of paper and those three ingredients got you to this magic, and it's all you, and yet there's also something larger than you, right? I mean, that's the other ingredient. Like, what else is out there that's working with me?
Yes.
That's the spiritual side for, the energies.
Exactly. Now, are you in the States again?
Yes. So I'm back in the States. That's the other part. So basically what happened, there were a series of things, but the largest problem, disaster, getting to the disaster side of my story in Argentina, we were in an area that was susceptible to droughts, very long periods of droughts, and it just sort of got worse as the years went on, due to clear cutting of forests and messing up the water cycle and all that, which is also a reality, as we think we have to be perfect in our lives and we can't get sick and we can't have addictions, which we all do, whether they're to substances or to certain emotions or certain people or to prestige and power. We all have our addictions that we have to deal with. The earth also has her illnesses and problems, and I think that this is a big reflection that we realize, like, we don't have to take our illnesses and problems personally. We can see that it really does happen to everybody. And so my relationship with the natural environment showed me that too, that the place was sort of hurting. It was out of balance because of like I said, clear cutting and whatnot. So what happened is in 2000, and this is fast forwarding because there were other little fires that came by, but basically 2013, a wildfire came by that we couldn't like avoid. It really did come straight for us, and my sons happened to be at the house, and they said, look, all we can really do is pray, put a blue bubble over the house, and we got to get our things and go. And that's what we did. We had a couple of minutes to grab our things, get some wet towels and put them over the windows, sort of get as much water as we could around the windows and evacuate, grab the guinea pigs and leave. Wow. And I took them to a home about 10 minutes away, turned around to go back and find my dogs and my cat who was outside. And by the time I got back, the whole place was already in flames. It was all just smoke, actually. The wind was so high. It was a very large wildfire that had unfortunately been started by people. This is what happens that in today's world, like it tends to be a human that sort of starts it, but then it becomes, as you living out in the Pacific Northwest.
Oh, it was horrible.
Oh, hi.
Hi. Once again, not a perfect world, right? Bye. Anyway, go ahead.
There you go. Real life, real time.
That's right.
And so, so our school that we had built over all these years, and we've been working, and more than that, the woods, we have over 100 acres of forest, of quite pristine forest. It all burned to a crisp, very, very badly. Our house was intact. It just sort of went over the house. It cracked some glass. It burnt the wooden frames on the outside. The house was intact. Our pets, all our dogs and our cat were outside. They made it.
Wow.
But our school was gone. Our Environmental Learning Center burnt to the ground. And our teachers, because we had a staff of teachers, some of them lived on site, and their homes burned to the ground with their things inside. Oh. So this was a huge thing to deal with. But the interest, there's the hard reality and the pain. It's like the punch in the gut when those things happen that you just have to take. And then there's the healing out of that. So what happened is it became another healing. It was like another cancer with chemo, if you want to take that sort of metaphor, that just sort of burns everything out, and amazingly things grow back. So the woods are growing back. Of course, they've been very much affected, but they are growing back. It'll take a long time to get it to anything what it was, but it's growing back. And our school is being rebuilt. It's almost completely rebuilt. We received funding, donations, and we just said we're going to rebuild. But in the meantime, I also realized it was time for me to get back to the States. It had been calling me for a while. And my sons needed to get back up to this. Well, get back. They had been born and raised in the States, but they really weren't having a good experience academically living in rural Argentina. As they got older, they really needed proper schooling, and it wasn't really available. We had tried many different schools, so they were suffering socially and academically, and it was time. And so we moved back to the States in 2014. We just had 2 bags each that, on the plane, we were allowed 2 bags each. And we came up here and we found a lovely school in Florida. I'm originally from Maryland. My family's in Maryland, but I said, let's try Florida for a couple of different reasons. And so here we are in southern Florida, and it's a good story because they are in a perfect school for them. We basically came here for the school district, and they're doing really well, but it's a whole nother new adventure. with its real life challenges. You know, it's definitely challenging.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like I am not living in an enlightened floating state yet.
Right.
But you know, it's the lesson that I needed to get of, like you say, the reality. And this is good. This is really good what we have, and to be in the moment and to be grateful for all these blessings. But I had projected living in Southern Florida. This is something I'd wanted to do, and the fire opened the door for that. The fire really was the thing that said freed us all to move beyond the limitations, because we really were sort of in a trap in a lot of ways. We were sort of stuck, I mean. And the fire, for as harsh as it was, it said, you're free. Like, opened those barn doors and said, what do you want to do now? And that's another thing that getting wiped out does to you. There's a freedom in that, because it's a clean slate. It's rebooting the computer. What do you want to program now in your life?
What I tell people all of the time is there's always gratitude. Like, in every situation, some situations you might have to squint your eyes really tiny to find the gratitude, but there's always, always something to be grateful for. And when we can find that kernel, you know, was it a great thing that the fire happened? You know, if we look at it on a global perspective, no, of course not. It did cause a lot of pain and a lot of suffering for many people, but it's when we can take those experiences and, instead of attaching a label and a meaning to them, we can say, all right, that was that. What's next? What's next? What's next? And in gratitude, what's next? Yay, here I go, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely, because it's not about saying, oh, I wanted this. This is great. I feel good about this. It's about accepting it and saying that this is my reality and being fully present with it.
Yes.
And that's where you start to see the magic. And as you say so wisely, one kernel, one tiny thing to say, I'm grateful for this. Like the love, like the people that are there. Aren't you always surprised about who is there to give you a hand when you're knocked out? It's not only the people that you would expect, and often it isn't. And there's gratitude there. You know, the people that, for me, that gave us shelter those days that we needed it, and then donated, and then helped us get here, and then that gratitude grows, right? Because that's the thing about gratitude. It's all you have to do is start with a little bit, and then it builds out from there, because it really is our natural state. I believe that this is where our power is. I mean, I'm a big fan of gratitude, and I know that you know that it does many miracles as well. With gratitude, a lot of magic happens. So that's actually one thing I work with, and I have an activity that deals with that, of getting into a gratitude state, little by little, till you can really sort of feel it, and then it can work a little magic in your life.
Absolutely. Well, Nicole, this has been amazing, and I am so excited because, as I said, the speakers in this conference are from all around the world, and each of us is healed differently and is presenting our gifts differently, but all of us are saying life is worth it. Like, don't attach to the pain. What's next for you? Let's move on together. And that is definitely what I hear about your story. I'm so excited. I'm so excited about your book coming out. Now, the day of the conference, September 19th, we're going to be online all day. I'll be sending you the social media schedule, and then we'll be publishing it. Absolutely. And so I hope people are going to try to catch up with you, and we'll bounce in and out of social media all day.
Absolutely.
So that'll be fun.
We'll be connected there.
Yes, that'll be fun.
It's great. So our circle is growing.
Yay.
Yes.
Circle of hope, right?
Yes, absolutely. And as you say, just keep going, because what's out there is out there for us. You know, the next thing is out there, and we can make it what we want it to be. And it's all about giving ourselves permission to be guided by our desire and what we truly love and our gratitude. And that's when it really gets exciting. And it really is worth it. It's worth it to come to that point. So
sure is.
Keep moving forward.
Yes, thank you so much, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful, Sandra.
Thank you. Bye-bye.